Hello, my name is Samuel Bates, and this is my XB2001 setup project. And so the scene, it will be set in medieval fantasy world, where the player must play as a knight who must save village from an evil king of the castle. The game would function similar to Kingdom Come Deliverance, kind of RPG genre. So the player would start in the bottom left, and the player would move along this path and then eventually reach this church. And at the church, there is a vicar outside who's being harassed by some of the evil king's minions. And after the player defeats these minions, the vicar informs the player that the village has been captured by the evil king and has been brought to the tower, the big castle up here. And so the player will then continue along the path to this encampment at the foot of this bridge. And so the player has sort of two options. They can either go in and head first and storm through and fight the enemies in this encampment, or they can move over the bridge quietly instead, and then into this sort of woodland area. And when they get into the woodland area, there are some patrols of various enemies, and if the player was sneakily before and didn't kill these enemies and encounters some of the patrolling enemies, the patrolling enemies could try and make a commotion, and these encampments would then come back to fight the player. So there's a bit of a risk of being sneaky, because then you might, if you are caught, then there'll be more enemies for you to fight rather than just going head first into combat. And eventually you would reach this main gatehouse area. And so if you are a bit sneaky, you could try and kill one of the enemies and steal their uniform, and then pretend to be one of the enemies and sneak through undetected. Or alternatively, if you did go head first, you could try and storm down the gatehouse. So basically inside the gatehouse there'll be two main gates. There'll be the first door and then there's the second one. So you can smash on the first one, but then the second one would be portcullis. So then you have to go into the main gatehouse and pull the lever to open the door instead. But if you were a bit craftier and stole one of the uniforms of the guards, then they can move through and just ask them nicely, and they'll just do it for you because they think you're their teammate. Then you would move up this pathway. If you are incognito, then you could move up without much conflict. But if you could go head first, the enemies would try and attack you and fight you all the way up until you reach this main tower. When you go in, you reach this great hall, and in the great hall there is the evil king, who is eating his meal, and you would confront the king and say, let the people of the village go, and he would just say no, and you have to fight the king, and there'll be a big duel. It'll be quite tough to fight because the evil king is a mountain of a man. He's quite a large fellow. Do a lot of very heavy attacks, and you have to try and attack him after he swings and charges at you. And eventually, after you defeat him, you would then get his key, and that'll let you get into the dungeon, and you'll be able to unlock and free all the villagers and set them go. My level is quite dim, so it'll be set in the evening time, and you have a lot of these slopes which are directing your eye towards the tower in the centre, and generally this sort of woodland area also is tower because the light is illuminating from it. And second, you also have these slopes which come down here and then would go over to this area, so these slopes coming down into this sort of secondary point, which is the previous objective from the tower. And then also you have some of these slopes and light around the church and encampment, which is the first point of the level before you reach the gatehouse or the main tower. But yeah, that's my idea for my level. So thank you very much.